This is the 2021 MT-09 SP. I had this for 2 to 3 months. I rode it in town on the highway, and as always when I have a standard bike, mountains. That was my favorite. I took it up to Helen, had a nice road trip day by myself. Let's look at the dash and what this bike looks like, what's different about the SP version, and how I did as someone who usually rides standard bikes. My own bike is a Triumph C-Triple R675, so this is more power than I'm used to and definitely taller than I'm used to. I'll show you. So my inseam is 31 inches crotch to floor. Yamaha's come tall. Out of probably like the 20 bikes I rode in 2021, this is probably the tallest standard bike I've ridden. I am on tippy toes here. And when I looked down at the tank, it was almost intimidating how wide it is. Even though it's pretty tall, and even though it's actually 7 pounds heavier than my bike, this is 419 pounds wet. It is 8 pounds lighter than the previous year's version. This tank is aluminum, and it's displaced pretty well. Like, I thought it was lighter than my bike. My bike's pretty old though, so I don't think it has the weight at the bottom like so many bikes have nowadays. Shorter riders always seem to shy away or want to lower a bike that they're tiptoeing on, and I'm definitely an example that you do not have to do it. It's so simple to be able to manage taller bikes. Just look up my short rider tricks video. I show how I ride taller bikes so that you don't have to do any of that stuff. And seriously, it'll take you 5 minutes and you'll be able to handle this bike if you're tiptoeing on it. So let's look at it up close. Let's see the dash. So it has 4 different ride modes. Also has cruise control. Also has emergency lights. Let's see what the horn sounds like. Oh. And the menu, you can look through, you can go through each different little feature. With this dial right over here. Usually you can change the modes, but it tells you which gear you're in. The odometer, look, it's just a baby, 626 miles. It's just a really pretty display. So the seat height is 0.2 inches taller than the previous years, but I heard some people say that it's also more narrow, so it doesn't feel taller. I just couldn't believe how light this 900 felt. I chalked it up to this. I'm like, it's hollow, but no, it's not. It's because it uses a lot of aluminum. Just looking around on it, all this matte black I think is just so pretty. It's me, Eric B, came to town and he was riding this. And at one point we were like, where's the exhaust? And we both literally looked for like over a minute until we figured out where it was. It's hidden. It's a hidden exhaust. I've never seen that before. Look, it's right down there. So if you ever have issues, I don't know, burning your leg on the exhaust, you'll be okay here probably. And up close, the black paint has like this really pretty flex to it. Some people say this headlight is ugly. I like it. I think it's unique and different. I never understood why people get so into the appearance of bikes. Like, are you gonna ride it or are you gonna look at it? Let's sit down and talk about it. So kind of how this bike feels when you're a shorter rider used to smaller bikes. I almost told Yamaha that this bike was too big for me and that I was definitely gonna drop it if I borrowed it. But after I rode 2 baggers across 3,000 miles, I thought, okay, I need to stop making that excuse and just know that I just need to be careful whenever the throttle's off on something that I'm tiptoeing on. I think because the weight displays low on this bike, and because it's so light, I mean, it's a 900 that weighs out about as much as a 700. I never had any moments where I felt like I was about to tip it over. With the MT-09, like, I don't know, it's just stable. Of course, I do 1 foot down always. If I did 2 feet down, that would be a different story. So how is this bike doing for commuting or slow speed skills just in town? Is it too much power? Like, some bikes are just too big and too powerful for a lot of in-town riding, a lot of slow speed skills, just annoying. I was kind of in a weird mindset because I had just gotten back from my first road trip, 2,000 miles on a Harley road glide. And that is a big bagger and everything is so rough on it. So when I got on this, everything felt so light and smooth and soft. Like the clutch felt so delicate. Like I felt like if I was stuck in bumper to bumper traffic for 20 minutes, my hand would be okay. I've ridden the MT-07 before, and something I've thought about Yamahas is from like low cost to expensive bikes, you can kind of feel it. Like a lot of times something just looks and rides like it didn't cost that much versus like a luxury bike. That's how I felt about the MT-07. It just felt really basic. I know I'm not going to use the word cheap because when I use that in my Honda video, I got so many offended people. Apparently, people get offended by that term. So the MT-09, that SP, I feel like it bumps the Yamaha to a luxury feel. It just felt upper class. I kept calling it fancy, but that's not the term, it's the SP version. And then some of the actual spec features that you have, it has cruise control, it has the fully adjustable suspension, and it's got an assistant slipper clutch, so when you're shifting, I think just downshifting, you don't need to use the clutch. The handlebars and foot pegs can also be adjusted to 2 different positions. The 2020 version of this was 847cc and now this is 890cc, so you get a little more there too. It's got 4 modes. I think the lowest mode feels more like the MT-07 feels more like a 700cc. And then once you start getting to the upper mode, that's when you might get in trouble. On the MT-09, you might get in trouble, so be disciplined, be a safe rider. It is the same engine as the MT-09, so it's almost like getting an MT-09 and with the upgrades already in place. What kind of riders and would I recommend this bike to? I'm not one to shy away from taller bikes, especially now that I know the tricks on how to handle them and I realize how simple it is. I don't shy away from them, but I know other people my height rather have bikes that they're flat footing or that they're just lower, closer to the ground on. The Kawasaki Z900, that's similar in power to this and it's much lower to the ground. I was almost flat footing on that bike. Kawasaki's come low, I've noticed that. I have a contact with Yamaha, so I've been able to ride a lot of Yamahas, and I went to a Kawasaki demo day, so I was able to ride a lot of Kawasaki's. If you sit down on any of the 900 standard Hondas or Kawasaki's, if you feel cramped on any of those, Yamaha's come taller, so you'll probably like the Yamaha. And as far as what kind of riding, I still have my standard bike. I've only very recently, with my first couple road trips, started thinking of something more road trip friendly. But when my mind was 100% in standard bikes only, the kind of riding I like doing is mountain rides and maybe day trips, not much more than that, commuting, not a lot of in-town riding because I hate traffic, but a bike like this would do just fine in it. It doesn't get too hot. All the controls are pretty light and it feels pretty light as long as you feel comfortable putting your feet down. If you don't, just know you can always practice that a lot. Practice just putting your feet down on a new bike. All those kinds of riding I feel like are really good for this kind of bike. And I guess of course you can always take it to the track. There are no fairings and it's an upright seating position, but why not? So that's the cool thing about standard bikes. They're very non-committal, multi-purpose. If you are really into the MT-09 and just bikes like this, you'd probably really like this video right over here, and I will see you in the next one.